Hello, my name is Francis McWilliams. I am a solutions architect with Embarcadero Technologies. Today we're going to be over in the session data governance. It's listed as trends, but it's going to be more of a primer. And how do we get through a data governance initiative, and what do we need to define and understand for that? Before we begin, I think we need to do a level set. We need to get some definitions out of the way first. And data governance, what is it? It's a big buzzword that's going around the industry right now. And in order to try to define it, we need to build a vocabulary, you and I, so that we are on the same page and we have the same understanding. Data governance is business and IT leaders making strategic decisions regarding enterprises' data assets in the information environment to ensure that it meets the needs of the enterprise. Now, I underlined business because it is both sides that need to come together in order for these definitions and in order for a data governance initiative to succeed. The business owns the data. It is their information. It is their asset. IT is our participants within the data governance process. Data stewardships. Now, this is the exercise of responsibility, accountability, and authority by a data steward for a data subject area. They are subject matter experts, and in that role across the enterprise, they oversee the metadata, or a particular piece of data, its definition, quality, security, and its effective use and how it's being utilized. So you need to define your subject matter experts for a particular subject area in order for that definition to propagate properly. The principles of data governance. Structured accountability. Well, that's a very nice term that just means we have rules and regulations and policies, processes, procedures, and the people in place too, in order to assure that everyone is accountable for a particular set of guidelines and the procedures that are involved with those. Transparency. Everyone has the information. Everyone understands back and forth how the information is being utilized within the corporate structure. Collaboration. Instead of things being siloed between the business side and the IT side, this will allow communications between the two groups, or many groups, in order for that data definitions to follow a typical process. Now we have empowered consumers. We have clean data. We have our data defined properly. Everyone speaking the same language. Now those particular consumers can obtain that information and make proper business decisions on it. They trust it. Compliance enforcement. Again, this is things like data dictionaries, standards templates, and ensuring that the data as it's being processed is again adhering to the rules of data governance. The rules of law. This is going to be your security principles, things like HIPAA, PCI, and other type of, say, Personal Privacy Act regulations that must be adhered to. And at the bottom I just have here, accountable data stewards define and apply context-specific definitions and rules to assure data quality, relevance, privacy, and security. Well, what do we need to get there? How do we get there? Now, this is a suite of, helpful hints or tips in order to get to a data governance initiative. So we'll start with the business lexicon. What is it? It's a common enterprise vocabulary. So again, just as I went through a couple of the basic definitions, so everyone's speaking the same language and they're all on the same page. Then we go into the enterprise conceptual data model. This is things like business process definitions. It has nothing to do with data, has nothing to do with data models, has nothing to do with databases. This is how the process flows step by step. So as you can see here, it's person, encounter, case, and its importance to business. Now we break it down to the enterprise logical data model. These are definitions and relationships among entities. So again, we're still one step above. This is business language, business definitions and terms that are defined and how things merge together. Designation of authoritative data sources. Where's our single source of truth? Is it going to be the data dictionary? Is it going to be within our templates? It's probably going to be a combination of many things in order to define that. Business rules, standard calculations, transformation rules, those types of things, data standards. Again, that's going to come out of your data governance committees, depending on the subject matter expert, be they technical or be they business, in terms of what a standard data calculation may be. From there, enterprise data standards. It could be a well designation code. It could be a valid port of entry code, customer account, case, date, address. Things like, take the word case for example. If you go to your legal department, that's what they go to court for. If you go over to IT, to your help desk, a case is something that you resolve, that you've been assigned. And if you're part of an airline, well, a case is something that goes under the plane. So what is the data standard? That's what you have to kind of delve into and determine what the data standard really is for that particular utilization of an entity or of a piece of data. Information privacy and security requirements. Maybe you're a public company. Maybe you have to do things with the SEC that you have to abide by. And then additional rules and controls. Data exchange requirements, rules, agreements, descriptions. How are we going to transmit our information, receive information? Is there a set of security definitions that must be adhered to? Nothing in the clear, certain encryption methodologies, what have you. That's where you would establish those definitions. And then the last one is pretty important. Identification, prioritization, and resolution of data issues. What if we have a problem? Okay, we've got all these great rules in place. We've got all these little processes. And what if something shows up that's outside of the realm of our current definitions? And we have to have a methodology in order to deal with that. So let's go through a quick story. Okay, this was presented to me at DEMA. And it's just a scenario. An insurance company was having problems. They couldn't close their books on a quarterly basis. They were having they're having issues, the numbers weren't matching, and they could never get their ledger to balance properly. So they thought it was something's wrong in the business. Somebody wasn't entering something right. Well, it turns out that the problem was with their data itself. They didn't have any structure, they had no definitions and processes, so things are coming in from all over, and then the calculations were not correct. So they were, like I said, disparate data inputs. They had 10,000 different spreadsheets that were being utilized in some of these calculations. And again, the spreadsheets weren't standard. It was kind of each department and group kind of doing their own thing, sending the information in, and somebody would compile it and come up with a number. So they formed an organization, far-reaching, and they were tasked with cleaning up the data, putting in these standards and putting in these definitions and the processes, not only within IT, but within the business analysts also, in order to try to get some control over the environment itself. Basically, they were doing data governance and they didn't realize they were doing it because they had a data problem. They didn't trust their information. Now, the reason that they were successful is because they had very, very strong support from the very top. This particular company, it was the CEO, the CFO, and the chief actuary, because the CFO, I mean, they have to feel the pain, okay, and identify what's in it for me. Whiffed. What's in it for them is they don't have to restate their earnings, they don't have to restate their data, they don't have to apologize to shareholders, because they have confidence in the information once they would get down the line a little bit and have the data governance taking control a little bit more. In order to facilitate that, they basically paid for everyone who had a requirement within a subject matter area to all kind of collaborate every other month. They'd put them in a room and they would talk about data, metadata, definitions, things like that. So without the executive sponsorship, it's very difficult to do well. You're going to be running into issues, and I'll go over that in a couple of slides here. What's in it for me? What's in it for them? The whiff, the pain points for kind of the executive team. Privacy, someone stealing my data. Risk, okay, I don't trust my information. My cost of goods sold is way wrong. Security, lack of business agility. I can't move in accordance to market trends and terms. I have to wait, and then my competition is going to get ahead of me, and that's going to result in, say, financial problems, and that's the cost of the information silos. With the 10,000 spreadsheets coming in from all kinds of departments and geographies, it was much more individual knowledge based on the group that was submitting the information. So getting back to the executive and business participation is key, and meaning that they're really behind the project itself and not just in words. This is pretty important. Business unit involvement is crucial. IT, we're a participant, the technical people, not the driving force. Data is a business asset. They own the data, they own the information, it has a value. So many companies are selling their information. I mean, it does have a dollar value. You can see that. I mean, it's called Google. Without executive sponsorship and business involvement, you can see there, you're looked at as a roadblock. Yes, I'm enforcing the rules. You have to watch the data integrity. We're going to check the definitions. You have to make sure that you adhere to the data dictionary standards or a particular standard template. And application developers are going to go around you unless you have this executive involvement. They think you're a roadblock, you're taking up too much time, especially in that new agile world where what they want to do is, we've got to get it built, we've got to get it in production, we've got to get it done. And they're not following all the various processes that are incorporated, say, into a data model or into a specific type of construct that defines a methodology in order to do a particular implementation, because agile means immediately. And then the information silos continue to proliferate. The decisions have no teeth, meaning it's just kind of, it falls on deaf ears, and nothing really improves or changes unless you have that senior management involvement. Now, why do we want to do this? Why do we want to do data governance? What is going to be the outcome that we're looking for? Well, one, you get a climate of trust, collaboration, and transparent communication among the data stakeholders. They can utilize, and I'll get into this product called Team Server, they can utilize that as a communication vehicle in order to express their ideas, concerns, and issues. Again, across more than just departments or entities, they can actually across geographies. I mean, many multinational companies are utilizing this now as a communications vehicle between their business stakeholders. The enterprise data is effectively and efficiently governed to ensure accuracy, security, privacy, and accessibility. Yes, you've got good data now. Something that you can trust. You're not worried about even getting down to the kind of simplistic example of the wrong zip code or a wrong address, or sending something to Bill Smith when it's William Smith, and ensuring that your data does adhere to, again, some enterprise standards. Clear and concise expectations, roles, responsibilities. The data risks, this is kind of important too, and the issues are identified and resolved quickly because you have that collaboration piece that allows people to discuss any issues at any point in time. It's very similar to many of the social networking sites where I can actually create a group of people, and whatever occurs within that group, everyone sees it at the same time. Additionally, as modifications are made, and I'll cover this in a little bit again, as modifications are made to a particular data model, that is immediately published and propagated out to everyone. So everyone's got the latest copy of everything. It's not like a stale report, because after you generate a report, any kind of modifications, you're kind of going to be working off old data. So, and the data decision making is consistent and efficient. So this is where you would blend it into your agile type methodologies as you're doing that kind of development work. Now, introducing Team Server. I mean, it's a metadata governance and database tools platform. It is going to give on-the-fly business context and collaboration to your data itself, to the metadata and control. Pardon me. This is a very busy slide. So building for the data governance. I mean, we know that we have evolving database ecosystems. You've got data warehouses. You have all of these other pieces that are out there, and they're difficult to control. So there's this big surge. This trend now is a big surge in granularity and diversity. You've got web, you've got mobile, you've got cloud. All of these information sources coming in, and I haven't touched on big data yet. And that's another one that's going to need a lot of control monitoring, especially as you're doing extracts out of a big data repository, and then typically I see it coming from the big data repository, doing a map reduce to extracts the information based on a search, and from there then you're going to be storing it in a relational database for consumption by an application internally. So it's the ability to see the data, understand the information, and then you obtain it in time that you can make decisions so you can grow the business. So the growth and diversity of the enterprise data is not just a management challenge. It represents a realization of like a strategic advantage that's critical to success and inherent in like customer and market adoption. And a lot of this information is coming from outside the enterprise. So once it's entering the enterprise, as we indicated a couple of slides ago, how do we massage that information so that it conforms to my standard as it's arriving in my door? So one of the examples I have here is I want to add insight to the information management workflows. Now this might be a little bit difficult for you to see, but as my coders or my developers are writing the code itself, and it says like select hiring date from something, and you can actually see definitions from the team server being propagated into the actual, it's kind of like a warning or a tickler that's happening for the developer themselves, so they are really aware of what's going on. It can also indicate who is the data steward for that particular piece of data. So if I have a question, I can contact them through the team server. I don't need to pick up the phone and call them. I can actually collaborate through there, saying I'm working on a particular development project, and I see that you own this piece of data that I'm working with, and I have some questions about it. So, data governance strategies. This is kind of, it's really a standardized slide. Just that you have to align with the senior executives and get them in place with their priorities and budgets. Yes, the business side would probably have the revenue in order to support any kind of a data governance initiative. You're going to get a competitive advantage out of it because it's going to make the whole more than the sum of the parts. You're going to have everyone collaborating, everyone working together to ensure that the data is correct and that the mappings and the definitions, and even down to say like an ETL process, and how does that work? When I calculate a particular monthly revenue total, where does that information come from? And I'll be able to have that defined within the team server. So it shows me all the way back to say the data source, or the columns within a particular data source that are being utilized in order to construct that particular calculation. So, and then compelling and timely, because you have this kind of a tool, you do have a speed advantage. So you have the reasons to act now, and everything is going to be based on the metadata that you're utilizing. So how do we do this? The governance for the on-the-fly business context and collaboration. So as these databases are being reverse engineered, as you're having DBAs doing modifications to data sources, as you have somebody writing SQL code on a different project, all of that is going to be captured, defined, and then available for consumption by, say, a business analyst or by someone who has interest in that particular piece of information. So the speed and comprehension is going to reduce the risk of, say, data policy violations. So you'll have the contextual alerts and tips that I showed you on the other screen. It's going to allow any user to locate and completely utilize, say, existing enterprise data via reports, glossaries, taxonomies, and registries. So they're going to be able to obtain this information very quickly without having to pick up the phone and call someone. I'm going to be able to define and publish more valuable business and data definitions by leveraging integrated collaboration and social capabilities. That's just a very nice way of saying it's a really easy to use, friendly, non-threatening interface that probably almost everyone's used before. So, and it's going to allow me, kind of the buzzword is turning these users into experts. I'll have faster application development and analysis. I'm going to be able to use the business terms that's then easily find data elements. So that's going to help me not only as a developer with my business definitions to see what this information really means, but I'm going to have the standards that are defined out there as, say, account numbers of our 20 or something like that. I'd be able to find that through the portal itself too. Again, I wouldn't have to pick up the phone and call a DBA saying send me over the definition of a particular data structure, when I'd be able to empower myself and look it up myself. Be empowered and look it up myself. So, and another common theme you'll see coming up here in this presentation is going to be the ability to capture the corporate tribal knowledge and apply the enterprise collaboration capabilities to capture and use that knowledge. By doing that, I'm taking the information, taking that knowledge from an individual, okay, so it's in some analyst's head somewhere, and then making it institutional and shared across the entire enterprise by doing that, by being able to obtain that information. As I have, say, employee turnover, they're not walking out with all the information. I've captured that, documented it, and now I have it in a tool that will provide it out to the rest of the corporation. So this is also on this slide. It's also highlighting a couple of slides ago where I've got the sensitive data alerts. If I pull up something that's PCI, you're dealing with credit cards or HIPAA, say it's healthcare or personal privacy, it's going to warn me. It's going to say be careful while you're using that piece of information or while you're utilizing that in your code, because there is some extenuating definitions or security pieces around it, so that it is defined as being sensitive data. On the business side, before it was technical, now it's the business side, I can find the information assets using the business terms. I can go out and say, tell me what a case is. It's going to show up. From there I can begin drilling down into the definitions of case, and from there I can go all the way back to, say, a data source that would be representative of that particular business term. In a nutshell, what this is doing is it's kind of relating the model to the data sources. And then I've got consistent reporting. So I've got a single source of truth for the entire enterprise. And again, that's going to be contained in things, say, data dictionary, or again in some other form of standards definition. So now you can see I've got collaboration over the data itself. I can classify and relate it. I can customize so that it's understandable by a lot more than, say, just IT. So I can view, classify, relate, and centrally manage authoritative business definitions in the enterprise glossary. We can also have collaboration about the glossary and about a particular term, myself and several other business analysts, where utilizing Team Server as a communications vehicle. Additionally, as everyone is included in a particular group within that discussion, it could be the modelers, it could be a data architect or data scientist, it could also be business analysts or someone else, an executive on the business side, as well as maybe the data steward. Metadata governance and syndication. Collaboration creates richer, more usable metadata. The social and crowdsourcing captures the tribal knowledge, okay, and the best practices based on the utilization of the particular piece of data itself. And then cross-functional collaboration is going to capture the definitions, the policies, deployment information. Again, through the approachable web UI for the business side and a really powerful search engine to enable discovery, it's going to lend itself for much higher utilization. I have seen this going into some enterprises, and just through internal use, it starts catching on and it begins to build and build and build as people find the value of this information and how it's being defined. I also have import-export capabilities, so if I want to import and export metadata, I can do that also. Who's Team Server for? Okay. Clearly it's going to be for data consumers, technologists, and executives. As business analysts and data analysts seek to become stronger bridges between business and IT, they kind of power users, okay, of the data management tools, and we need to access, they need better access to business definitions in those particular tools. Data governance roles, I mean, they could be data governance analyst, data governance program manager, data steward, data governance manager, and others that would also be looking for access to this. Now, when a new version comes out, and it's going to be also, let's say, of the database tools, that's also going to be integrated into Team Server. So DBAs would be interested in this too, because you have the reverse engineering and definitions of the databases. So it just helps to more tightly integrate the products, and it's going to enable us to reach a high. You're going to have a higher audience level. And the interest of this is not just going to be in IT of defining databases and making building models and things. Another one's going to be my data consumers, auditors, data analysts, data governance roles. Currently, they've got the insufficient time to spend accurately interpreting ever-increasing volumes of enterprise data, and there's more and more, especially with the advent of big data and capturing many other types of data sources that are out there. There's screen scraping, there's input feeds from various other networks. You can be buying data from many different vendors out there, so it's kind of, you never really know where the data is coming from until you bring it in, clean it up, and then import it within your organization. Then you have your compromised business decisions based on misunderstood data, because you don't have the rules in place, the definitions defined, and the processes to follow in order to understand, again, the single source of truth. The technical users, data architects, modelers, DBAs. So this way they can develop or re-engineer existing data strategies to really understand what's going on. And their risk is going to be that they're not complying to ever more complex regulations that are out there. So the big kind of takeaway on this slide is going to be that they can adhere to industry regulations and business standards because you can have them predefined within your data governance processes. The business executives, okay, they're responsible for the major data-driven, say, company initiatives. So again, they can make bad decisions because they have bad data. It's not their fault, it's just that the information wasn't provided to them correctly. So again, they've got significant risk. Anyone that's familiar with public companies, how often do you hear that they've restated earnings? Well, that's because another data source popped up they didn't realize that they needed. One of those 10,000 spreadsheets was missing. It contained something valuable, and it wasn't included in the calculation. So this way, it's the mitigation of risk for the business executive so they can have more confidence in their data. Meaning, when they go to market with it, they're not worried about having to restate it because you've got a methodology in order to prevent that. So why Team Server? Okay, I think we've kind of covered this. It's really the only platform bringing collaboration capabilities and correct data quality comprehension issues to bear. So with those definitions, with the ease of use, again, I keep using the word non-threatening, and I'm going to because it is. People sit down and they feel very comfortable using it. It's not like you're looking at an exceptionally technical interface. It's very social networking. The data users to data insight. It's really, again, we can extend the comprehension of data elements and business terms, okay, to the widest range. I can do this association of a business term all the way back, I think I said, to a column level within a particular database in terms of where I'm getting that information. And I can see where that term is being used across my enterprise. So, and then business definitions of information assets, and that's what I was referring to. The only tool that allows users to quickly map business terms to information assets using existing metadata. It will also allow me, now, even though it's a nice social networking interface, it also has all of the technical capabilities under the covers. So it's if you wanted to view your models, you wanted to see all that technical information, yes, it's all there. So I can communicate the technical design. I think this is a dimensional model of a data warehouse. And it gives me the ability, now this is going to be on the modeling side a little bit more, the data warehousing side. It's going to tell me what the current structure of that particular data warehouse might be. And it can start from there. Say you're going to reverse engineering, or even if you're building a data warehouse. Then you'll start at the modeling level. From there, then now you can apply your business terms, incorporate it into glossaries, and have that association between the two. So, again, communication with executives, we always want to keep them in the loop, keep them informed. And this is profit and loss facts. They love numbers and they love profits and loss, especially if it's profits. And you can see here from product, going around the horn, geography, time, employee, and store, in terms of the information that's going to be provided into that calculation. So the executive can see, okay, I've got my profit statement here, and where did that information come from? And you can see what the data flow in terms of coming up with that particular calculation, and they have the ability to trace it back. Oh, that particular slide. This particular model is created with another one of our tools, Business Architect for conceptual modeling and design. So, quick side note there. Another interesting feature is going to be the discovery of undocumented data. Again, going back to silos, kingdoms, fiefdoms, I'm not sure how you want to refer to it. In a decentralized system, you've got the person who has the model, and they have access to the model, they understand the data, and the benefits that come with that. But the problem is, again, that's siloed. So that's the one person that has that access. On the other, you've got everyone else that has no access to the models, no understanding of the data or metadata, and they don't benefit from it. It'd be okay if those people never needed to work with the data, but in this case, the people in the organization really need to get access to that. So someone in one geography of your corporation wouldn't know about a siloed information store in another geography. They just wouldn't have that kind of linkage. Well, with the team server they would, because it would be documented in a centralized location. So, and now with team server, thinking outside the box, what makes your data model complete? Well, number one is going to be well-formed definitions. The business names are in the logical. There's nothing that's strictly with the business side. Domains assigned to each attribute and column. What that means is it's part of the data dictionary, the single source of truth. And those domains that are assigned not only will give me a consistent definition across the enterprise, it will also enable me to make global modifications to a particular piece of data. Pick something, account number, and that's going to be a varchar 40 in terms of the physical size. If I make a modification at the domain level, that'll propagate out to any and all models that are associated with that domain. So it'll update that account number across my enterprise. Again, single source of truth, central control. And that's going back to one of the initial slides that says enforcement of policy, procedures, and standards. One thing I see that is kind of getting hot right now is going to be data security. With the advent of credit cards being stolen, people breaking into other people's accounts, hacking, phishing, spoofing, man-in-the-middle attacks, that sort of thing. I can actually tag my data with data security definitions so that I know if something is associated with PCI or HIPAA, or in Canada, I think it's called PIPEDA, for their personal privacy acts. That being said, and that information being defined, I would then have the ability within the team server, within the published portal, to do a search and say, tell me everything in my enterprise that's defined as PCI. So then I would know what my sensitive data is, or what is involved in HIPAA. So from there, from the business term of saying, show me security of PCI, I would be able to drill into it all the way back to the column level within a data source in terms of where that information is being stored and where it's coming from. So it's going to give me full end-to-end visibility in these data definitions. Pardon me. Reporting. Now, there's a lot of challenges with the reporting. The common case, the modeling team is checking information in and out of the repository. So they're doing their models. Once they're finished, okay, they've got to start generating reports, be it in Microsoft Word or document, HTML, Excel, RTF, PDF. They generate the reports and then they will publish those out on, say, a shared drive. So that's going to be their current access on the shared drive for all this reporting for their customers or whoever is interested in the data. They have to do that every time there's a modification made to a particular model. Whereas they can forget something is going to be incomplete. You're going to have customers that don't trust the reporting anymore because it was published but yet it still came up incorrect. So by utilizing Team Server, anytime there's a modification to a model and it's published, that updates everything across the board. That will update the reports, that will update everything else that is associated with that particular model. So, and it's hard to do any kind of collaboration because the data modeler generates a report, publishes it out, and how do you get feedback if there's any kind of inconsistency issues? I'm missing a column, or there's something with a domain that's not there, and there's no collaboration. Well, I get an email, I get a phone call. No, this way you can do it right through the team server. So, and then manual and laborious Difficult to keep up to date. Out of date reports lose trust among end users. Yeah, that's really critical, because if you're producing all these reports and nobody believes them, that's not a good situation to be into. So what we have is automated reports. It's self-service. I have the ability to provide this in, again, a very easy to use, non-threatening way. We have standardized reporting that is generated right out of the box with almost every entity. So it's self-service and self-maintaining. After I generate a report and I've saved it and I make a change to a model, that report gets updated. So I've always got the latest version of the freshest data that's out there in terms of these definitions. So, and we've got the ability to comment directly into the team server and do a feedback to the data architect from the, say, the business side or one of the educated consumers. So it's really a closed loop communication cycle. And then you get data stewards, business analysts, and everybody else is involved in the modeling process. Again, which you need to have in terms of data governance for the transparency and for everyone else to be working together. So I can also track usage on this particular on the portal, on the team server. So I can say, hey Joe, I haven't seen you logged into the team server in a month. What's going on? I've got this information and you're not consuming it. Is there a need to it? And I understand there's going to be people that only need to access it every quarter, maybe, or maybe once a year for tax reasons. So, find, know, and protect. Okay, this is really going to be relating my technical architecture to the business value. So I can do Automatch. Okay, the business terms to critical data elements, and everything's going to be integrated in an information into the information map. And I've got the single searchable registry of all the data sources, so I know where is all this data coming from? Where is the initial source databases or columns? Or yeah, it could just be columns if I'm doing, say, data lineage on a particular ETL job. So extract, transform, and load. I've picked out various columns from numerous databases. I want to see what the calculations are. Again, I like to use cost of goods sold or quarterly profit. I can drill back down from that particular calculation as to where the sources are. Again, this is kind of reiterating it. Collaborate to establish the definitions, taxonomy, and usage policies. This is going to be the communication between the data architects, the business analysts, could be data scientists, and it could be just data modelers themselves, and even the DBAs. In terms of how is this particular piece of data being used, how is it secured, how is it protected. So various classifications that you can utilize. So, and this slide is really just about the delivery of metadata into data workflows and data analysis tasks. And you can leverage the central repository by integrating into other applications. We do have APIs built into it where you can do imports and exports in and out of this particular offering. Quickly access and model a range of data sources from big data to mobile data. The modeling of the big data, that's going to be after you do an extract. Okay, I mean, it's called a MapReduce, where you go out and do a search of a big data repository or a Hadoop Hive or something like that. It's going to produce a result set from that extraction. Now that result set is going to have a structure to it of some sort. I can model that structure, okay, after the extraction. And I think I may have mentioned earlier that typically I see that extraction and then it's going to be moved or saved or copied to a relational database for internal processing and delivery to other applications. So just real quickly to read this, just to provide the ability for data architect users to work from a common centralized data source repository. Well, that same repository is what's going to be getting published out to the customer side, to the educated consumers, as I keep keying on that one of the first slides that I showed you today. So, faster, more accurate models from more data sources. That's going to be within the ER Studio Enterprise. It has ETL support. That's starting to get a lot more attention lately as you're doing data lineage. In a nutshell, that means tell me where my data came from, tell me how you manipulated it in flight, tell me any kind of security or any other eccentricities that may be happening, and where did the data go? What's the target? So many times that target is just going to be a temporary file That's going to be manipulated by another stage of a transformation. As you keep seasoning the data as it's moving down the pipe until it reaches its endpoint for consumption, be that either in a report or delivered to an executive's desk or as an input to another application. The DB Power Studio, I'm just going to touch on this very, very briefly because there's going to be an entire day dedicated to this. And within the DB Artisan Rapid SQL, what I wanted to show here is they're just doing a select star from a particular set of, from a database, particular set of tables. And you can see that the metadata information broker, and who's the data steward? Larry. Well, I can pick up the phone and call Larry and say, again, you own this piece of data, you're the subject matter expert, and have a discussion about it. Wait, step back, I wouldn't call Larry. I would get on Team Server and go ahead and send him a message that way. And then this way everything is recorded and I can see the entire audit trail of our discussion for over that particular entity or piece of data. So why do we create it? Again, this is going to be back to the same one before. The key to ending information obscurity, okay, is the metadata. So we need to do that. And we're trying to make, just the last one here, we're trying to make enterprise data more valuable. By doing that, by cleaning it up, by defining it, by structuring it, by protecting it. With Team Server, the users are empowered to find, know, and protect the critical enterprise information assets. Enterprises have lots of data. How fast can you find what you need? I mean, most, maybe top 5% is getting used. The rest is just kind of being siloed and it's being underutilized right now. So what does your data mean? How is it best used? I mean, how many serious errors are occurring because of misinterpretation? So we can really help kind of define that. And then in terms of protecting the data itself, what are policies? These are just the questions that you should be asking yourself. I mean, this is a picture of, the Mars Climate Observer. There was a $400 million holes in Mars because they used the wrong units. I don't know if you heard about that. We lost a satellite because one part of NASA was using metric and the other part of NASA was using imperial. So they're doing, inches to centimeters, and things didn't fit right. So they lost the Mars Climate Observer. So I guess that would be a very classic data error. So you should know what units of measurement that your enterprise is using. And what policies apply to your data? What are the permitted uses? And has sensitive data gone mobile and escaped? I mean, we need to know that and define it. So, well, I thank you for joining me today. I hope you found this very informative. And I think we're going to be opening up for questions here shortly.
Great, thanks. This next question is from Cheryl. Does the definition appear during a SQL query happen only when writing SQL via the Embarcadero tool, or is there a way to integrate it with other query writing tools?
That sounds like it pertains to a different session.
Ron, I think you had tried to respond to this.
Yeah, basically, the support we have right now is we have the repositories on our database tools as well. So through the Team Server, those definitions surface into the other tools, but it's only the Embarcadero stack right now.
Next question is from Alf. It says, one risk of big data models is that it can start to dictate how the business is run, because being static over time, while data tools should be dynamic and change over time to simulate the dynamics of the business, such as an HR system that may not fit all employees' behavior. Ron, I think you had some...
Yeah, basically the question we have to ask ourselves, are we better off with anarchy and no models at all, or are we better off having models to help us communicate what needs to be done and what our data and process are about? So we basically, what it really is incumbent upon the architects and the people collaborating is to be more dynamic and responsive in creating those models in response to changing business needs.
James brought up an interesting topic. Says the last question raises the issue of the degree of detailed granularity versus the degree of genericity in an enterprise model. How do you split that? he favors a high degree of genericity that captures the business rules, but still can respond to states of chaos. What other thoughts do you have? Francis,
Did you
any
want me to
thoughts on
take that one, Joy?
Yeah, either you or Francis or both.
Well, my basic response is that's a huge topic, and I mean we could spend a day just discussing this in all kinds of different sessions. But like any other enterprise architecture undertaking, it's a matter of prioritization. Which of the areas that are the most important to the business and the most strategic to the business, and those that you focus on the most, and those you drive down to a lower level of detail. There are a number of areas that are fairly generic and fairly standardized across businesses, and you don't need to delve quite as deeply into those.
Francis, anything you want to add?
No, I completely agree with Ron in terms that that's a very, very broad kind of topic that would need to be broken down.
We should have that as a birds of a feather topic at our next event or something like that.
Good idea.
Frank had a comment here. It says the benefits of data governance are evident, but where can I find ROI or TCO data related to data governance?
Well, where I would look that up before is going to be in I've published it here, www.information-management.com, and it'll provide some kind of an ROI for you. But the ROI, it's really not standard at all. It's got to be defined by the enterprise and the organization themselves based on what business issues and difficulties that they're currently having. And then once those issues are resolved, and then can you really back off data governance? No, it's more of a methodology. I don't think that you can say, okay, data governance is finished. We've completed the initiative at this point. You really haven't. It's an ongoing process in order to ensure, I would say, the rules and the policies and procedures have been adhered to, which are then going to be dynamically changing over time to the business needs. So that's very difficult to quantify. Ron, do you have anything to add on that?
Again, governance is a huge topic, and the business case and the ROI is really a case that has to be put together for the individual company at hand. If you're in a high-risk business where, such as the example given in the presentation, where mistakes can cost you millions of dollars or lives, in other instances, it's pretty easy to put together a business case to try to prevent that type of thing. In others, it can be a lot more difficult.
The next question is from Alf, and he asked, does Team Server also support MySQL databases? And the short answer is yes. Team Server has the same database type support that is available in the other ER Studio products, supporting all the major databases and a bunch of the smaller players in the industry too. Francis, did I miss anything there?
No, you got it all. I mean, MySQL and Postgres are the two ones that are kind of the hot ones. I call it the open source radicals that are out there right now. And yes, we definitely support that.
Great, thanks. The last question I see is from Mark. It says, can definitions have multiple approvals and approvers with multi-level approval routes?
The answer to that is yes, definitely. If I'm going to, it depends what you want to approve there, Mark. If I want to propose a new term, I can do so, and you can set these approval levels. I can say that it's in the proposed state, and that's going to be for discussion, collaboration amongst my peers. Once it does that, then it's going to go to maybe to a committee, and after that, then you move it to production. But you can have various levels of approvals that are kind of self-defined.
Okay, great. Another question came in from Janet. Other than Team Server, what else within the ER Studio suite supports data governance? What parts of the tools are standards included, like domains, naming standards, etc.? As I know, we have naming standards capabilities within ER Studio Data Architect to help define the right standards or a set of standards to use across all the models.
Yes, I would call this two sides of the same coin, because you've got the Team Server, which is going to be more the business side with your terms, your glossaries, and relating back that way. And then what Janet had indicated, domains, naming standards, other various templates that are out there, that's going to be more on the data architect technical modeling side. And where everything comes together is in Team Server, is where it will absorb all of the technical components and all of the metadata, and then apply all the business terms and definitions to that. Ron, would you have anything to add on that?
I'll add just a little bit, not to steal too much from my session that's coming up in a couple minutes, but I've also used the attachments for metadata tagging to help categorize things as well.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. One last question. Alf has come back on his MySQL question and asked, are there plans for support of built-in procedures for MySQL?
That one we're going to have to look into.
Yeah, I think that.
I do not know.
We'll get back to you. And Mark, I love your enthusiasm. He says he's so jazzed about Team Server, and I am too. It is a great offering, and we are excited to be making that available to customers.